Hey, it's Michael Mills. I'm one of the founders of Business Design Corporation, and we are the developers of the TouchStone Business System. I just wanted to share an experience that I had recently. A prospect of ours asked, how can I justify the expense of TouchStone? TouchStone is a process implementation system. And it's a valid question. The first thing I asked him, are you about to hire someone? Or do you plan on hiring someone in the life of your business? Are your plans to grow? And of course, he said yes. And I said, well, if that's the case, let me start by saying that if we can save you one mishire, the savings you will have generated can essentially pay for the use of TouchStone over the entire life of your business. If we can save you just one mishire. What, you might say? And which is exactly what he said. And I said, okay, let me break it down for you. I'm going to suggest that you don't really know how impactful it is to mishire someone. And so there's a book written by a guy named Brad Smart. It's called Top Grading. Great book, highly recommended. And in it, Brad lays out some rather stunning statistics that he's discovered in his research with small and mid-sized businesses. He writes that the cost of a mishire is 15 times their base salary. Well, when I first read that, I got thinking about that. I said, 15 times, how can it possibly be 15 times? I mean, that just seems outrageous. But I got reading more into the book and I got thinking about my own experience with small business owners. And I started thinking about, well, there's the expense of recruiting. Both time and money. If you're using ZipRecruiter or Indeed.com, there is that expense. If you're using a headhunter, there's that expense. Or even if you're just doing it yourself, there is time and money and expense in recruitment. So that's one expense. There is the cost and the expense of training. Again, time and money, because you're paying this person and they're being trained. They're not producing until they start producing. There is little, if any, return on your investment during a training period. It is pure expense. And then there is the cost of your time and your colleagues' time who are training them. If you sat down and calculated the amount of training time spent with a new employee and multiplied it by the total number of hours that your salaried people or your paid employees we're spending training this employee, these employees who are doing the training, add that to the cost of hiring a new employee. You'd be surprised to find out exactly how much that adds up to. Then there's the cost of lost opportunity. Let's say I've got a salesperson, for example, who's supposed to sell, say, $10,000 a month, and they're only selling $2,000 a month. You're actually losing $8,000 a month. Now you might say, well, I'm not really losing $8,000 a month. They're on commission. What does it matter? It matters because you are losing $8,000 a month. If you hired this person to sell 10 and they're selling 2, then you're losing $8,000 a month of opportunity. It's what we call opportunity cost. If you hired the right person, you'd be getting $10,000 a month. Your goal is to get someone who achieves your expectations. So in this case, the cost of your lost opportunity, it's $8,000 a month. If you keep them for 12 months, thinking they're going to finally figure it out or hoping that they'll figure it out, that's $8,000 a month. And that translates to $76,000 over that time period because you didn't have the time, the patience, and the courage to let them go and find the right person for the position. Then there is the cost of the mistakes a new hire often makes. They put out a proposal that costs you, and you lose the profit in the sale. They make agreements with a prospect that are costly. I personally once made a deal with a new prospect that was hugely costly. It was way back in 1983. I had a software company for computerizing art galleries, and I was doing a demo of our software application for the guy who was the distributor of Andy Warhol's prints. Very high profile prospect that I was trying to sell. And my prospect said that if you make these changes to the software, I'll buy it. And I said, sure, we'll do that. Now, remember, I'm not a programmer. I had no idea what it was that I was agreeing to. I just said, sure, we can do that. And he gave me a deposit. I went back to the office. It was in New York City. I took a cab back to the office, celebrated with my programmers. And at some point I said, oh, by the way, I agreed to these changes in the software. And they just about hit the roof. It was hundreds of hours of time that I'd agreed to. That sale cost us tons of money. And then your reputation. There's some pretty remarkable statistics of how everybody loves to hear horror stories, right? If your new employee does something that's bad, that's somehow reputation tarnishing, things like that can go viral. Everybody's going to hear about it. And I'm not going to cite them. You all know that there's some remarkable statistics of the difference between a negative piece of news and a positive piece of news. And finally, there's the cost of the frustrations from the interactions of the new employee with you, their manager, and their colleagues, and the constant interruptions by this new employee who doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. So back to the question my prospect asked, how can I justify the expense of TouchStone? Well, remember, Brad Smart writes that the cost of a mishire is 15 times their salary, right? So let's say you can't imagine it could be that much, even though I've gone through all those points. Let's say it's 3 times their salary. Surely you could see from the points I've just made that it could be at least that. And let's say that the salary for this new employee, 35 grand. Multiply that by 3. That's the cost of your mishire. That's $75,000. If TouchStone is able to save you from one mishire, that one $35,000 employee, that save, if you do the math, would pay for your TouchStone account for more than 500 months. That's 41 years. But there's more. According to Brad Smart's research, most companies say that they are less than 25% successful at hiring. That means that 3 out of 4 times you're going to hire the wrong person. You're going to fail at hiring 3 out of 4 times. This is stunning. And for any of you who have hired, what I'm saying is not necessarily that you hired someone and then let them go immediately. On the contrary, I wouldn't call that a mishire. A mishire is when you don't let them go quickly enough. You hope and pray that they're going to get up to speed, and you just hold on to them for months and months, maybe even a year or more, and they never produce. The whole time you're going, when are they ever going to learn? Because you don't want to let them go. You don't want to go through the hassle of hiring, and you don't want to go through the emotional upset of firing, and you don't want to go through the hassle of training. That is not a successful hire. That's a mishire, because that person should have been let go during their probationary period when they hadn't got up to speed in the time that you believe they should have gotten up to speed. So this is pretty remarkable. It's not only somewhere between 3 and maybe 15 times the cost of their salary, but it's going to happen 75% of the time. 3 out of every 4 hiring attempts. Well, what we suggest that there are 3 key reasons this is so. Number 1, the lack of a process for finding the right candidates and interviewing them to make sure that they're the right person for the right position in your organization. They abide by, believe in, and share your values, your vision, your purpose. Second reason, the lack of a training and management process. There is no onboarding and orientation process. There's not enough training. There's no training process, and there's little, if any, managing of them or mentoring them through their training period. And then there's no ongoing management process, maybe on a weekly or a monthly basis. And the third key reason, there is no process for evaluating and reviewing them. How do you evaluate? Do you do a 30-day review? Do you do a 60-day review? Do you do a 90-day evaluation? Do you do annual evaluations? All of these processes you will find in your TouchStone account. You can download them, edit them, and put them to use immediately. Refine them over time. Make them work for your organization, whatever size your organization could be. If you're interested and you have a TouchStone account, go to the 4 key functions, go to running the business, or whatever you may have called it. It may say admin, finance, HR, IT, but it will be the 3rd key function in the list. go to the General Process Library and select these 3 processes. They'll be in alphabetical order. Put a check mark beside interviewing, put a check mark beside new employee onboarding and orientation, and put a check mark beside recruiting. Now, by the way, if these are grayed out in your TouchStone account, it means you've already got them. We've recently upgraded these processes and really made them, I think, much better. So if you've already got them and you got them, say, November of last year. So if it was before that, if they're gray, then reach out to us. We'll show you how to be able to get them, the most current versions. So that's interviewing, new employee onboarding and orientation, and recruiting. Then go to guiding the business. Again, you may have renamed it to strategy and management, but it will be the first key function in your key function list on the left-hand side of the screen. Go again to the General Process Library and select Employee Evaluations. So these 4 processes alone could save you tens of thousands of dollars by making sure you get the right person for the right position in your company. If you don't have a TouchStone account, go get a free trial. Fill out the information on the left sidebar. Then go grab all of these processes. And after you've got them, if you choose to, you can save them as Microsoft Word files and cancel your TouchStone account. And you'll have all of this amazing content to work with and use it in your business. So I hope this is really helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And until my next piece, I wish you well.